So, it's been a rough couple of days. On the off chance that you got to this channel without knowing about my other channel, The Dawn of Van Life, just to cover it in brief, I live in a box truck that I've built out into a tiny home. So for people who don't know what that is, I live in basically what is a standard moving truck for most people, something you would like rent from like Penske, and I've taken the inside of it and built it out into an RV type living space. For more information on that, you can jump on over to my Dawn of Van Life page, but if anybody was just scrolling for weight loss videos and they ran across this, I just wanted to explain that. So right now I am sitting on the inside of a box truck. I do think that context is needed before I proceed with talking about my journey to try to get back on the wagon of weight loss. I think I've had some legitimate reasons that I've fallen off the wagon and some delays that I allowed to exist because we always seek excuses not to start sometimes. And I'd started and I was going hardcore and I was disciplined as heck. I knew I had a lot of weight to lose. I was trying to go from, being over 300 pounds to getting down to my loose goal in the far off future, even if it was going to take me a year or more, was to get into like the 180 pound category. Like that would be my dream category, which is not the dream category for most people at 5'4" tall, but I've never been small, so the idea I could be under the 200s, which I have never been in my adult life, was very appealing to me, and it was a long stretch goal. First, I just wanted to lose 100 pounds off my original weight, and then I wanted to, from there, start to push towards that 180, but I really wanted to take a year and assess. Well, what happened before that year was up was I bought the box truck. Before this, I was living in a standard size van, namely a Chevy Express, and before that, I was living in a minivan. Now, I started my fitness journey in the minivan, but I was also at the time, I had employee housing in Ashland, Oregon, which is interesting because like at the time I was living in California, but I had gotten this job in Ashland. I had employee housing, and then COVID hit and everybody was home. Now, the good thing about that happening is I had nothing else to concentrate on except my weight loss goals. And so I became 100% consumed with that goal. I even crossed the country. I eventually left employee housing. I crossed the country with fitness equipment in my little van, and I would find parks and get out and exercise. Now, what I was finding is it was consuming a lot of hours of my day when I was in strange places to find a place where I felt comfortable pulling out my fitness equipment and exercise. It wasn't so much about people as the right spot to do it where I wasn't being disturbing to others, especially during COVID, because I wasn't the only person exercising outside. Now, I have used home exercise before. I've always preferred exercise outside of the gym as opposed to in the gym. I have tried to use the gym in the past, but it's never ever been a consistent thing for me, whereas when I've used at-home exercise through usually some sort of video instructor, I have been way more successful. I've lost way more weight, and I've stayed way more sort of on point than I did when I was trying to use gyms. I like doing my own independent research, finding what works for me, and then just keep doing that. Like, that's my ideal way. Well, in order to solve the problem of having to find a location every single morning, now, if I was in some ideal world where I was always in the forest and I could just pop out into the forest land and exercise outside my vehicle, it would be one thing. But I am a full-time nomad who sometimes has day jobs in the city. And at that point, I'm doing what I like to call curb cruising. So I'm sleeping in a spot here, I'm sleeping in a spot there, because I don't try to settle down in one spot and claim land I don't own. Part of choosing this lifestyle was knowing sometimes being a nomad just means where I go to sleep every night might be different, and that's just part of it. And sometimes it's not the most beautiful, epic location in the world. Sometimes it's street side. Sometimes it's a parking lot where I know they don't care, but I can't just get up in the morning in those places unless I want to start ruining it for other people or draw attention to myself and just pop some exercise equipment out and exercise. But I didn't want every morning to be consumed with this internet search in strange areas for a place where I could go, or even go to a place I normally went and finding it more crowded than it was on a different day and not feeling like it was a good environment for me to just pull out stuff and get going. And so that was small part, but it was part of the main reasons I pursued getting a standing height vehicle with some more space in it to build out. And so then I began building the tiny home that I am in now, which at this date I have not done a tour of just because there's been way too much going on to do it. And so the build, I did start cataloging build videos on my channel, but the build got way ahead of what I could handle editing on top of the day job that I had at the time, and I just had to live with that. And that wasn't the only thing that I had to live with. Now, originally I was trying to keep exercise going through the build, but I hit a wall. Namely, I needed to do the walls in the box truck. Before then, I was living in here with metal walls. I have 3 windows in here now. I hadn't installed any windows yet. There was a lot in here that was not a house. It was metal walls, a sleeping bag on the floor, and a storage unit full of projects that I needed to do. Once I needed to do walls and floors and things that really required the box truck to be empty, keeping my bike in here, my bike trainer, my dumbbells, like, it just did make sense. The stuff was in the way, and honestly, even before that point, I was squeezing in trying to build out this little tiny house in here on top of having a job that I had to go to. So I had hours a day I had to commit to this job that I was doing in the same area where my storage unit was, which had all my tools and supplies for building out the box truck. So I was really trying to balance those two things at the time. And I kept telling myself in my head, once this show ends, I'm going to hit the build hard, and then I'm going to jump right back on exercise. And that didn't happen. So I unloaded everything from the box truck with the full intent that I would exercise hardcore again the first day I could. So I wear this fitness band. Now, this is a fitness band from Garmin. It's called the Garmin Instinct. I have had Garmin fitness bands for a number of years. This one I really, really like. It's super simple. I maybe charge it 2 to 3 times a month, and otherwise I'm always wearing it. Now, the good thing about me always wearing it means it's always tracking me, my steps, my sleep patterns, my lifestyle, with my heart rate condition on a regular day. Now, for something this small, there's always a little bit of impreciseness, but anything you can buy over the counter in a store and take home is always going to have that little bit of impreciseness. But what it did show me, even though there was a lot of physical activity involved in building out this box truck, it was not as much physical activity as when I was actively trying to exercise. So any sort of job you're doing, where it involves physical activity, it's easy to tell yourself, oh, I am still exercising. I'm lifting heavy things, and like I had to run around a lot today. And in your head, you're making these so much more active than they probably actually are, and that's okay. We all do it. I'm just flat out admitting it. And I can't make those excuses because of this fitness band. One of the things the Garmin Instinct tracks is what is called intensity minutes. Intensity minutes are based on exertions of heart rate. And because it tracks that, I can pull up a chart on Garmin and I can clearly see the heavy decline that my physical activity took during the months of the build, like even as early as the earliest stages of the build, there was a decline in my physical activity. Now, I was doing a heck of a lot, but some of that was running all over town for errands. I bought my sink, for example, had the wrong sink, so I unpacked it, got it set up, and I was like, wait, there's parts missing. And so then I had to run my butt back to the store and replace it, and it was a whole thing, and I'll probably do a separate video on it. But that was sort of the situation with my sink, where like the whole hours of the day were gone, like all of my free hours of the day were gone, but I hadn't really done any physical activity. And the thing about when I'm focusing on exercise, I know I have to do these other tasks, but usually in that first chunk of the day, I make sure my exercise gets done, and then, you know, I'll do that. So it gets done early, out of the way, because I know the rest of my day is going to be consumed with this other thing. Now, because I removed my exercise equipment, I didn't necessarily need to go interact with my storage unit in order to get tasks done every single day. Some things I kept in the truck so I could go to the parking lot at Home Depot and work on my box truck. Some days I was working at the storage unit. I tried not to abuse the space at the storage unit so that they wouldn't make me leave. And I ended up having a really good relationship with the people there. But either way, I was very cautious about when and where I was spending time so that it didn't look like I was hanging out anywhere too long while I was building out my tiny house. And so there were a lot of hours consumed, but those hours weren't necessarily activity, is what I'm saying. I was busy, I was tired, and I was exhausted every day. Some days more than when I was actively exercising. On top of that, I really started eating bad, I'm going to be honest. And it wasn't really about me going back to like consuming tons and tons of candy or anything like that. To me, the worst thing I can do is eat out as opposed to eating at the grocery store. But because so many hours of my day were being consumed in these awkward ways, what I went back to doing was buying food. So I probably spent a good like 80% of my build at Taco Bell, because it was right near Home Depot that I shopped at a lot, and it was like, all right, I need to get this project done. You know, Taco Bell's right there, and their food is healthy. You can make healthy choices at Taco Bell, but if you're not burning those calories, it doesn't matter what you're eating. There's plenty of things that aren't necessarily quote unquote bad, which I have a problem with that word anyway. There's plenty of things that aren't bad that you can get at Taco Bell, for an example, just because it's there. I also spent a lot of time eating at Panda Express. Again, another place where you can get stuff that's not necessarily bad. But bad doesn't matter to extra calories. Extra calories are like, oh, you didn't use me? I am going to store myself for later. And so that is where the problem with fast food comes in. It's not about bad food versus good food. It's that I was definitely back to eating an excess of calories. Now, I did go back to snacking as well, but I would say the worst thing that happened was me starting to buy food. And I would say early into the earliest stages of my minivan life, that was also how I gained weight. I again had a day job, and it was not fun to try to cook in the minivan, even though I could do it. If I could avoid doing it, I kind of tried to get myself out of it. And so I went back to bad eating habits. I was not exercising as much. I was busy and I was tired. And honestly, exactly what I did was absolutely necessary. In order to have the box truck the way it is now, I needed to focus all the energy on the box truck build. And once the box truck build was done, that was supposed to be the point that I could just switch it back on and get back into like that strong routine that had lost me over 60 pounds before. And 60 pounds over the course of a year is not a huge number. There's people who have done larger numbers. I don't really care. 60 pounds is a lot. Like, what is that? Like 2 small toddlers? And I lost somewhere in that world over the course of about a year. So if I kept going at that rate, you know, in 2 years, I would have been at least 120 pounds, maybe more, depending on how quickly I was gaining strength and all those other things. But the point is, I fell off and that stopped being a thing. And I'm pretty sure I've gained weight. I have not weighed myself. And I was at the point where I was weighing myself every day, and I'll circle back to weighing in a second. I've not weighed myself, so I have no confirmation except how I feel. My clothes had started feeling a certain way, and they've stopped feeling as much that way. I've not gained back all the weight, but I've definitely gained some weight back, and I know it. And I am okay with that. I made the necessary sacrifice to have the home I have now, and I love my tiny house. So, while room for equipment was a big deal for the box truck decision, as I said, in the minivan and in the Chevy van, and definitely when I lived in a car before that, I didn't have room for a permanently set up kitchen. I did not have room for a large fridge. I didn't even have a fridge in the car, obviously. I mean, you can buy a car fridge. That's essentially what most van lifers have. But I didn't have room for a fridge in the car. And I did not have room for a huge fridge in the minivan. When I started in the minivan, also, I was still partially broke. I'm not gonna say I'm rich now. I'm a little bit better position, but I was broke. And at the time, 12-volt fridges were much more expensive. Like in the last 2 years or so, affordable, worthwhile options have started to appear. It used to be anything you got cheap was going to drain your batteries anyway, so you're already broke, so you don't have a lot of power to put in your rig, and then you buy this 12-volt fridge that's like killing your battery, in a quarter of a day. And there used to be, like, if you got a cheap fridge, it was not going to last. I would say in the last 2 years, a lot of discount fridges have really caught up to some of the higher end fridges as far as being worth it and not killing your batteries. And my power needs before that, wanting a fridge, were really simple. I needed to be able to use a laptop. I could charge things at work. I had a little plug-in inverter. Let me grab one. Like, I had a little plug-in inverter like this where I could charge things while I was driving. My old I lived in a Toyota Avalon car, and a Toyota Sienna minivan. And both of those had little built-in inverters that I could use inside the vehicle, but they only worked when the vehicle was running, so I could use that to charge. And I didn't have any solar or any kind of way to, like, generate power while I was still and not driving. So every time I drove, I had my cell phone charging and my laptop charging. And that was pretty much it. I tried the cooler with ice for a while, and then I just gave up on refrigerated food, which, because of the smallness of the space and the restrictions of the space, I ended up not cooking much and always wanting to buy food. And like I said, that led to me definitely gaining more weight. Now, in the transition between the minivan and the Chevy Express van, I was able to have a permanent countertop, and that was a game changer as far as, like, feeling more comfortable, like, making food for myself. During the tail end of having my minivan, I had a car fridge I got off of Amazon, a little discount fridge, and suddenly I could have refrigerated food again. Now, it wasn't big, it wasn't huge, but suddenly I had a fridge. I didn't have a freezer, but I had a fridge, and that was a huge change, after maybe like a year or so without a fridge. I don't remember at what point in my minivan life I got my first 12-volt fridge, but that was a game changer. So, with the box truck, though, it has been a super game changer, because not only do I have room for a fridge, I also have room for a freezer. And the greatest part of that means it's easier to pre-prep food, and that has been the biggest deal. The fact that I can make something, split it up into like 3 or 4, and then have food for like 3 or 4 days, and it's already prepared. I already know what's in it. I don't have to play, guess the calorie count so much when things roll over. A lot of people hate counting calories, but I think one of the reasons it doesn't bother me is I'm the type of person that can eat the same thing over and over again. When I'm eating bad, I'm pretty much eating the same thing over and over again. When I'm eating good, just to make those distinctions, I'm eating the same thing over and over again. It means I don't have to think too hard about what I'm eating. If I'm eating the same thing every day, I know it's what's in my calories, I know it has a good macro balance between proteins, carbs, and fats, I know they're mostly in the good type of protein, carbs, and fats. And if that stays a standard with a few variables every once in a while, maybe when I go out with other people, that is okay with me. If I don't want to eat something, I don't buy it. And I find not having it available to eat makes it easier. And because I live alone, it makes it even more easier. It's harder when you're in families and you're like, if I don't buy the Oreos, I won't eat them. But your husband or kids or whatever are determined to have them in the house. And so they're there for that moment of the temptation. It's a little harder to control. Because I live alone, I just don't buy it. So I only buy the things I'm going to eat over and over again. And then I restock them as they run out. And for me, that just works. But I didn't have the space to do that. I didn't have the space to have those things that I like to turn into those repeat meals. And so I am happy with the box truck where it is now for the opportunity to do that. But I will be honest and say it has taken me a while to get back into the habit, but I'm pretty proud of where I am right now. Like within the last month, I would say I've gotten really good at controlling not going out and wasting, cheat moments. I don't need to schedule cheat days or cheat months or anything else. I need to know, you know what, last week I had a cheat moment. I'm not going to do a cheat moment this week, and let's try not to do one for a while because we know we had one last week. And since I don't require the cheat, I'm kind of reserving cheat moments for when I am with groups of people and making sure I am aware of when those cheat moments happen so that they do not become habit or consistent excuses. If I had a cheat moment, last week, this week I just want to try not to have one. And so that becomes like a goal of mine, not to have that cheat moment, because the cheat moment is more to participate in this social aspect that other people seem to enjoy. But in my perfect world, I would love to meet people who's like, hey, let's go for a hike. What you doing on Thursday? Let's go. Or something like that, as opposed to let's go for drinks. But we'll see what happens as time goes on. So now that we talked about food, and I'm not going to get into the details of what I'm eating because I feel like you cannot win on the internet. No matter what you say you're eating, somebody's going to find a way to point out to you how that thing is unhealthy. Or have you heard about that thing giving you cancer? Or haven't you heard about that thing making you grow a third head? Haven't you heard that thing just makes you fat? Haven't you heard that thing is addicting even though they said it used to be healthy? Yeah, that's why I don't talk about what I eat, because I feel like it's immediately going to be criticized. I mean, I did a throwaway scene on my main channel, Donna Van Life, where I was eating oatmeal, and it was instant oatmeal, which I know is not the perfect oatmeal choice, but it's bloody oatmeal, which is a pretty decent choice. And yes, it's instant. You know why? Because I like the instant raisin oatmeal. And of course somebody popped up in the comments is like, you shouldn't be eating that. You need to be eating steel cut. And I'm like, God damn it, I'm eating oatmeal and people still gotta criticize? I ain't talking about what I'm eating. Like, as much as possible. Every once in a while, I might highlight a couple things. Hi, Mickey. Recently, I've been making my own wraps, which are mostly vegetables. They have a little bit of guacamole on there. I usually add some other type of dressing, a small bit. And they have cheese. Oh my God. People who criticize the cheese. This is my cat. What you doing, bud? I'm trying to make a video. Okay. Bye. But it'll have a smaller amount of cheese, and I might throw some tofurkey or some salmon on there. And I've been eating that wrap like every day. It's really easy to make. I'm just throwing a bunch of vegetables on there, a little bit of protein, maybe some cheese, rolling it up, and having me some num-nums. And I've been going back to doing protein shakes. And that's about the end of the amount of information that I'm going to give. That's pretty much been my solid for the past couple weeks now. Food has transitioned back into habit longer than exercise. even though I have the room now, I have been struggling. And I think part of the problem is, as soon as I felt like I was ready to move out of the out of the storage unit, the box truck wasn't necessarily done. There were still projects to do, but nothing that I wanted to keep an expensive storage unit for. I also ended up going down to Southern California. I did not want to leave a storage unit open in Northern California when I was heading down there, but I went down to Southern California. I got some things checked out on the truck. Was told it was in pretty good shape mechanically. We fixed up a couple of things as a precaution. It was all precautionary stuff. And then I headed to Colorado for an event. I was at the event. I was consumed with time at the event. And then when I left the event, I headed up to Oregon because I had a friend in Oregon. I've built a new little extended family in Oregon. I've changed my residency to Oregon. I'm still working on things with the box truck to get it registered once it started to malfunction. That sort of put its registration on pause. So it's been a busy couple of months. So even though I've been back in the box truck for like 2 months, I've had so many false starts with exercise. I think if I was already established, if I'd finished the box truck and I'd had some calm downtime, I could have dedicated that time to just getting back into habit. And yes, it's a partial excuse and a partial truth. And it's something I could have fought against, and I've tried and I've basically failed. But there are times I was just making excuses and times where things were legitimately too busy for me to really lock it in as habit. Now, where I feel like it was time for me to erase the excuse was when my truck wouldn't turn over, which was over a week ago now. And of course, it's my house, and the whole point of my house is that it's drivable, and I'm parked on my friend's property, and yes, she's being very kind, and she doesn't really mind how long I stay while I get the truck up and running again, but I was getting a bunch of anxiety about it, because I could always leave if things got uncomfortable. If it felt like I was overstaying my welcome, I could always leave, and when the truck stops working, that's not an option. But I told myself, Dawn, you are still right now. You can literally not do anything. I had another friend, hi baby, who works in the automotive industry, and he spent this past weekend working on my truck, but he couldn't do it last weekend. He just didn't have time, and he works during the week, so he couldn't come out during the week and do anything. And he did a diagnosis of, sort of semi-diagnosis of what it was. We did further investigation this weekend and sort of worked through it. But I literally had a week where I couldn't go anywhere anyway, and I had absolutely everything I needed to exercise on a consistent basis. So I had no reason to make excuses. And it took me a couple of days to really say those words to myself, say, what is happening? You can't do anything. You're on pause. All you can do is sit here and wait until Rob's available to help you. What can you do with that time? And what I needed to do with that time was focus it back on exercise. And so I've spent this past week mostly focusing on that. And I feel like I did sort of find my rhythm again a little bit. And the day on Saturday was an exercise day. The space to do exercise needed to happen. Since I knew Rob was coming up over early on Saturday, I needed to get my butt up even earlier than I expected him and do the exercise.
We have here a little bit faster than that warm up. 90 if you can. Almost there.
I don't know if you can see the sweat that's pouring off my face, but I did it. I jumped back into it. Definitely was feeling it. It was only a 20-minute workout, and I was definitely feeling it about 10 minutes in, but I definitely pushed through as best as I could, and I'm just happy. What I needed was a start. I need to know I did it today, so there's something about once I start, I'm more obligated to keeping going. And I was able to recommit to that more times this week than I have since I moved back into the box truck. Like I said, I had a bunch of false starts once I took the equipment out and then put it back in when I was finally in a place to do that. And I had to get started to know what I needed to adjust. And one of the things was, originally I had my dumbbells and my workout bench stored back here under my bed. There's an area in this direction that's basically my clothing storage, and then there's a little bit of space on the side. And so I'd squeezed my dumbbells and my workout bench in that corner. Now, yes, I know you can substitute dumbbells for fitness bands, the stretchy things with the handles, and I do have a couple of those. But honestly, I just don't like them as much as dumbbells. I like my adjustable dumbbells. I have been using them for years, and I'd rather use those if I want to do strength training exercises than use fitness bands. Even though they're smaller, lighter, and would take up less space, I just don't like them as much. And I find if you're going to go on any kind of fitness or weight loss journey, it could be fitness, it could be weight loss, you know, anything that involves exercise, maybe just fitness and not weight loss, you have to enjoy what you're doing or you're going to stop doing it. You know, if, yes, I don't know, let's think of something. Maybe, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something. Running. Maybe running or jogging is going to be better than mountain biking. I don't actually know the stats on that to know one way or the other. But you like mountain biking. You don't really like running. Which is funny. I think they're both about going fast. Just one involves a vehicle. You're going to mountain bike consistently because you love it. If you commit to that something you're going to do a certain amount of times a week, or let's pick something less weird. Let's say you like to jump rope, but you don't like doing pull-ups. And everybody should do some strength training and cardio. I think like you need a good mix, in my opinion, but I'm not a fitness trainer. But if you don't like doing pull-ups, you're like, nobody likes doing pull-ups. Just because something is strenuous and it tires you out doesn't mean you don't like it. Like, dancing is exhausting, but a lot of people like dancing. And dancing can be a legitimate exercise. So let's go with that. Let's say you like dancing. You absolutely adore dancing. If you go take a class in dancing, you're probably going to do that better than going to sign up for a gym for, I don't know, spinning or something, like a spin class. Because maybe you hate the spin class, but you love the dancing, and you're getting cardio either way. And what's going to last the longest, no matter what's the best, is the thing you like doing. So that's a long way of saying, no, I don't want to trade my dumbbells in for fitness bands. I know they exist. I don't like them as much. And that's basically what it comes down to. So I needed room for them, and I thought, oh, let me just shove them in this corner. But it made it really difficult to get them out. And because it was difficult to get them out, it's discouraging to do it. I mean, that's one of the things with the gym in general, is it can become a chore to go there. Now, for us nomads in van life, a lot of us have, I don't anymore, but I used to, a lot of us have memberships to gyms for things like showers. I got annoyed during COVID that the gyms were opening back up, and that meant I was starting to be charged again, and there was no guarantee that the showers were going to be open. And I found I could just find some sort of pay-per-use shower if I was really desperate, as opposed to wasting money on a gym membership with no guarantees. And so I let the gym membership go. But at one point I did have it, which meant I was in the gym all the time. But I felt I just didn't want to spend extra time in there. And it wasn't about not exercising. It was about the fact that I just didn't like the gym. And so the thing you aren't, hating doing, you're going to do more consistently. But for normal people, like non-nomad people, that might be, okay, where am I going to fit in this trip to the gym? Is it going to be in the morning? Is it going to be in the evening? Now, some people love the social experience of the gym, the idea of talking with other people who are interested in fitness, and I can actually see the appeal of that in a class setting, just not me independently going there for exercise. But in the case of the box truck, because with this, the point is, if I go out boondocking, I have access to the same opportunities and equipment. If I'm in the city, I have the same access to opportunities and equipment, and nothing about my fitness routine needs to change depending on how far or close I am to a gym, a park, or whatever. And so what I've realized is I have to let my dumbbells, quote unquote, be in the way. So I had this idea they were going to hide in a corner. I pull them out that corner when I wanted to use them, and I shove them back in that corner when I was done with them. But what I've actually found after trying to do that is it's annoying, it's awkward, and I'm prone to hitting my head when I'm pulling equipment out of there. So it isn't even about me being like some sort of weakling who doesn't want to move the stuff. It's that it's in an awkward place. And it's not as easy to get in and out as I thought. So I needed a new location. And you know what? I was like, you know what? I built this box truck to support my fitness. I don't care if my fitness equipment is very visible on the floor. And so I ended up moving my dumbbells out here into the main space and moving my workbench, my lifting bench, what do you call it? A workout bench, into the main space as well. By the way, Mickey has shredded. Mickey's my cat, for anybody who doesn't know. I hear him back here. Here he is. I gotcha. Mickey has shredded. You have shredded my workout bench. Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? So yeah, he turned it into a scratching post for a while. He's not really scratching it anymore. But it is what it is at this point, and it's still usable. So the other thing I really like to do is spin classes. You like, what are you talking about, spin classes? So both of my workouts that I use right now are on YouTube. And yes, I said both. I'm using two. I do them both 3 times a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I spin. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I lift weights. Or at least that's the plan. I haven't yet done it. This week I only did, I think, 3 and 2 or something like that. But that's the plan. So for my spin classes, I use 2 pieces of equipment, 2 major pieces of equipment, and that is my bike trainer and my Mart bike. I do have a cheap Mart bike, as I like to call it. I've always had Mart bikes. And so what I mean by that is a Walmart, Target, inexpensive bike, women's bike, that's proper for my height and maybe weight class. I always kind of get iffy about that. And then I also bought a bike trainer, which is something you can put on the back wheel, so you can basically turn an outdoor bike into an indoor bike. Now, some people might be like, just bike outside. But the thing is, one, again, going back to, I'm not always in a place where I can bike outside. And 2, I want it to be a workout. What do I mean by that? Well, outside, there's a bunch of variables. There's cars, there's cats, there's dogs, there's human beings walking around. There's so many things you can run into. With the biking indoor experience, you can just put on a workout, follow the prompts, and get the workout. You can speed up when you want to speed up. You can slow down when you want to slow down. You can increase intensity so that it's harder to pedal to simulate, you know, the feeling of maybe going uphill. And then you can loosen that tension and focus on speed while you're going downhill. And you can do that with the speed adjusters. I have I think it's a 10-speed bike. I want to say it's a 10-speed bike. If not, it's a 6-speed bike. But you can on the bike trainer, if you adjust those, you will feel the tension tighten or loosen. Now, you do need to be very careful with bike trainers depending on how it attaches to your bike. There's some where you take the rear wheel off and you actually sit that into the bike trainer, but those are way more expensive than what I have. I have the cheapo version. It's similar to something I had years ago because I had a bike, and I do like to bike. What I'm liking for exercise, though, not for pleasure or fun or situations where it might be fun to take the bike outside and actually just do a fun ride, for exercise, I like that isolated experience on the bike trainer with a trainer doing a YouTube spin class giving me prompts. And I like that so much better than trying to make sure I get the bike all the way outside every day. So I actually use my bike a lot. And on the off chance I got caught up in bad weather or something like that, there's no reason to stop my training regimen because I want to be riding a bike, because I can do it right in here with the instructor on the screen and just following instructions, and that has been really, really good for me. It's another piece of equipment that's accessible and visible on the inside of the truck. Now, I will say my original plans were it was going to be on the other side of my interior wall. And basically I have a roll-up door, and when that roll-up door goes up, there's an interior wall behind the roll-up door, and there's maybe about a foot of space there. When the interior door closes, it hides it. When it comes up, it shows it. Now, my original idea was the bike was going to be behind this interior wall, and again, invisible and hidden when not in use. First of all, it didn't fit. I didn't leave enough space back there, but I also didn't want to give up any space in the interior for me to be able to exercise. So I've been happy with where I've put it. The hook that it's on has been through some bumpy roads. The bike has always stayed on it. It's always right where I left it when I come back here to check on it. And so it has worked out to have the bike hooked on the wall where it is. Now the bike trainer is another issue. That has been awkward to store a little bit. It's in kind of the corner of my floor space. It is a awkward space behind the bike where it's hard to store anything else, so it's been fine in that regard. But it has been awkward to store. It's just an awkward piece of equipment, and it's not big, so you wouldn't think so, but it can be kind of a pain in the butt. But it's fine. You know, it's not in my way for living space when I'm in here not exercising. It's just that I did have this fantasy of this clean space where you weren't going to see any of my exercise equipment, and then it magically transforms into the gym, and then it stops being the gym and it goes back to being a house. And that's maybe because I've seen too many Lego builds, as I like to call them, where like the desk turns into a chair, which turns into a bed, which turns into a group space. And I ain't build any of that. I went very basic. I had a loft bed, storage, bathroom. By bathroom, I just mean a toilet and a place for the litter box for the cat. I have a table right here to eat on. I have a countertop over there. I have my little sink in my stove, and that's all she wrote. So let's talk about weighing myself. This video is getting way longer than I thought it was going to be, but let's go ahead and cover the subject. I have not weighed myself since I've begun to reboot my exercise regimen. It's not because I'm afraid of the number. The number is going to be what the number is. My goal is to go back to weighing myself every day, which is something I was doing before I cut off exercise to kind of focus on the build. But the reason why I haven't started weighing myself again is because I've been struggling with the other two things, food and exercise. And what I found at the beginning of this particular weight loss journey, because I'm counting this as a continuation of what I started a year ago when COVID started, over a year ago now when COVID started. What I found during that time is that add one thing at a time. So by the time I started trying to exercise consistently and it was really starting to work, all I was focused on before that was kind of getting eating back on track, finding an eating pattern I liked, finding food I didn't mind, repeat eating, finding something that worked in my fridge, because now I have the fridge and the freezer, and it's great. As far as like having it, easy to prepare, don't mind it on repeat eatings, trying to find that rhythm again. And I pretty much found it with allowances for a few variables because of life. And when that felt pretty cemented, it wasn't as hard to not think about it anymore because it's just a part of what I do every day. And start trying to work back in exercise as something I do every day. So step 2 is trying to get that exercise pattern together. But basically the plan is when that is cemented, I'm going to give it a couple more weeks. It doesn't have to be cemented, but I'm going to give it a couple more weeks of really trying to make sure I actually do those 3 days a week. That I actually do those 3 days a week of spin class. I actually do those 3 days a week of dumbbells. And then I'm going to add back in the weigh-ins. Not again because I'm worried about the number. The number is just data. That data will adjust one way or the other based on what I do during the week. I have no one to blame but myself for how that number is adjusting. I'm not going to let that number rule my life, but I like those data points. And there is plenty of research that says people who weigh themselves every day actually do lose more weight faster. I haven't done it long enough to tell if it's any significantly different from when I was not weighing myself, or weighing myself once a week, or weighing myself once a month. I've done all of those things. I was measuring myself once a month at one point just because it was a pain in the arse to do it. And I didn't really see the point of that as daily exercise because it's me trying to like wrap stuff around myself. There's a huge margin of error there. If I did it every day and I got it wonky by an inch on a day, or maybe a half inch, inch is a lot, or a quarter of an inch even, like that would start to stress me out. So measurements is something I'm happy to do once a month, just like I was doing before, to complement the weight loss, to really see how my body composition is changing. But I do think it will be useful for me personally to go back to daily weigh-ins just to have that data point. You wake up in the morning, you know, you get on the scale, you get the number, you move on with your life. You don't look at it, you don't stress out over it. When you weigh yourself the next day, it just is what it is. And at the end of the week, look at the trend. That is sort of my goal, to see what my trend was that week. You know, what happened, because if you only weigh yourself once a week, let's play with some fake numbers. Let's say you weigh yourself and you're 250, you know, on Monday. And let's say you're 252 on Sunday. But let's say on Wednesday, you were 245 for some reason. It makes you not hold so precious to things within like 5 pounds. And that's how I am. Like, I don't hold precious to anything within 5 pounds. Now, if I see a significant up or a significant down, that's something I need to pay attention to. But anything within 5 pounds, I'm not going to panic over. It is just a data point to give me a more accurate graph of what my body is doing. And I know some people cannot handle it. It's not a big deal for me. I will be going back to weighing myself every day. I won't be reporting on it every day. Maybe I will on Instagram or something. But I think it's something I need to do, but I don't need to do it prematurely because honestly, it's not important. It's important, but not important. It's a component to add, but not something I need to get me on track now. Like, I don't need to know what that number is. I know I gained weight, and it's totally fine. The worst thing the best thing that can happen at that point is that I weigh myself and I haven't lost as much ground as I think I have lost in my head. That would be good news. And if I have gained weight, that's what I expected anyway. So, it's not a big deal. So, that's where I am right now. I have started again. As much as is possible, I have thought so much about making this video because it feels so far in the past that I was doing this on a weekly basis. I'm going to try to go back to reporting on a weekly basis. I used to try to overlap this with things I was dropping on Instagram, and I did get a lot of people who were supporting me there, so I may go back to something on Instagram. I don't know what it's going to be. It may not be the micro videos I was doing before, just because that puts too much video work on me, so maybe I can figure out something with photos, or I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what to do. Because there are people who are really supporting my journey there, and I just kind of fell off and disappeared from that journey. But I disappeared from Instagram during the build anyway, because I was so consumed. But that's about it. I'm not going to ramble anymore. This is already a long video, but after such a big break from my weight loss and fitness journey, I felt like I needed to really just attack this and talk about it all. And some people are going to hate this sit down and talk video. You're just sitting here talking. All you see is you're sitting around talking. But this is what it is. For all the people who support me, bring all the positive energy. I love you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming back after such a big break. And that's all. Bye-bye. So I finished up October excellently. The last week in October, I actually did hit my goal of 3 days of a week on the bike and 3 days a week of dumbbell work. But unfortunately, the week after that, my truck ended up in the shop, and it was not a successful week, but I can't let the bumps get in the way. I plan to spend the rest of the November meeting those goals hardcore. See you next time.